never forget the smell of the sweat from under your armpits. Did you know that rainbows are projected by invisible celestial spheres, and that the Earth is actually concave or inside out? No, me neither. But some people actually believe it. I'm gonna say it may be easier if I just show you.
Shut up and sit down, you big bald f***.
Please subscribe.
Hello everyone. Admit who among you did not know that the rainbow is an ailment at all.
Isn't an ailment an illness, like a cold or itchy scrot? And I appreciate the creative redefinition, but for anyone who's ever, actually sort of looked at a rainbow and not immediately booked themselves in for an MRI, it's not an ailment. It's light, bending, through water. That's it. No need for a doctor's note, no prescription required, unless the prescription is more science, unless whatever that was.
Yes, science!
And the circle is the same perfect circle as the halo of the solar gala, with only a small difference.
And I thought flat earthers were confusing, but a small difference. Like the difference between a gentle drizzle and a Category 5 hurricane. They both involve water, yeah, but I wouldn't recommend confusing the two.
The colors are ordered in reverse, and no, don't rush to shower me with statements by type.
I wouldn't dream of it. We've got all the time in the world to gently educate you. But here's the thing about reverse order. It's a bit like saying that all cars are red because you saw a red car once. You're half right, but you're missing the entire parking lot of actual information.
What are you talking about? We have seen a rainbow more than once, and it is an arc with the horns pointing down to the ground. And as a child, we ran to the base more than once to see where it begins.
Honestly, who hasn't done that as a kid? That pure, unadulterated hope of finding a pot of gold. But think of it this way. A rainbow is like your own personal light show. It's specific to your position. As you move, the light source, in this case the sun, the water droplets, and your eyes are all changing their angles, meaning your rainbow appears to move with you. You are literally chasing your own perspective, but with colours.
And how did you get to the bottom of the rainbow? Or did it run away from you alive? Recall the school formulation of the rainbow is an optical phenomenon caused by refraction, internal reflection and dispersion, and light, the sun located opposite, in drops of water.
Well, you've only gone and done it. You've quoted actual science.
Yes, science!
That's it. That's the secret. Because that exact formulation, an optical phenomenon caused by refraction, internal reflection, and dispersion of light from the sun located opposite in drops of water, is precisely why you can never reach the bottom of a rainbow. Now, I can't help but notice that your concave Earth video doesn't seem to be talking that much about concaveness. Or are concave earthers just like flat earthers? You quote reality and then try to reverse engineer it to fit your model.
That is, to see the dispersion of light, the source must be behind and at a certain angle in relation to the optical medium and the projection screen. Optical media will be discussed later. The projection screen, when forming a rainbow, as a rule, drops of water serve.
Well, that's exactly what I've been saying. We don't need to discuss some other media later. The physics is already perfectly clear, consistent, and has been proven for centuries with these humble little things called water droplets.
And this is the result of the fact that the sunlight forming these rainbow halos passes through a different number of celestial spheres and accordingly different distances.
Right, celestial spheres. Because when reality offers up an elegant explanation like light bending through water and ice, what we really need is to invent gigantic invisible crystal balls floating around in space, acting like cosmic kaleidoscope lenses, for reasons. Now, tell me, these celestial spheres, are they like the ones Aristotle dreamt up a couple of millennia ago? Before we invented telescopes and basic physics. Because the last time I checked, we've got satellites, space probes, and literally centuries of astronomical observations that have somehow mysteriously failed to detect these colossal light-manipulating crystal barriers.
And before we compare rainbow circles with solar halos, we will try to understand these light effects within the framework of the fractal world model.
Fractal? Bloody fractal? What are you on about? So before we discuss how reality actually works, we're gonna try and shoehorn reality into a theoretical construct that exists. It's a bit like trying to understand how gravity works within the frameworks of the Teletubbies universe. Yeah, it might be fun, but it's not gonna lead to any demonstrable, testable, or even remotely accurate conclusions about Earth.
The only model that gives an answer to such interesting and difficult questions, and for those who have not yet familiarized themselves with the materials and research of the fractal world, I hasten to inform you that the Sun is located in 4 celestial spheres out of a total of 7 spheres, which means that the light emitted by the Sun passes through 4 crystal spheres to the very surface of the Earth, while bending, aiming back to the center of our world.
Well, for a second there, I thought we were discussing, actual physics, but oh no. It seems like we've opted for a Tolkien novel complete with invisible light-bending crystal spheres that somehow have managed to evade every single telescope, satellite, and space probe humanity has ever launched. The only model, really? So centuries of optical physics, atmospheric science and astronomy, all those verifiable equations, countless experiments and actual images from space, they just don't count. They don't answer the question of a rainbow for you. Well, I'm sorry, but that's like saying the only way to get a pizza is to teleport directly to the moon. It's certainly a way, but not one based in any semblance of reality.
So the emitted sunlight passes through the solar sphere, thereby decomposing the white light into a spectrum with the red color directed inward. Further passing through the sphere of Venus, the colors are inverted, overcoming focal lengths, that is, white light is not scattered, and then inverted red outward.
Okay, so now we're not just dealing with generic celestial spheres, we've got a sun sphere and a Venus sphere, acting as cosmic diffusers and inverters. I tell you one thing, you've got to give it to this guy, he's far more inventive than the average flat earther. You've basically invented an entire Rube Goldberg machine for a phenomenon that a tiny droplet of water can achieve easily.
Next, Mercury's sphere turns the red color back inward, but the lunar sphere in turn gives us that same rainbow with red color outside.
How about no?
In other words, this is a reflected rainbow circle on the second celestial sphere from us, similar to how we observe the reflection of a light source on double glazed windows, that is, the glare of one glass is a lot. So there are several reflections, and this is a very rough analogy, but nevertheless.
Rough? Okay, we'll go with rough then. Now, when an analogy is so rough that it completely abandons the actual physics it's trying to explain, it stops being a rough analogy and starts being just plain old wrong. It's like trying to explain how a car works by saying it's similar to a potato. Yeah, they both have got parts, but it's a very rough analogy.
At the same time, I remind you that there are several hundred kilometers between the spheres.
Well, thank you for clearing that up, because I was wondering.
Our world inside is woven from spherical, transparent nesting dolls.
Of course they are, and is that based on the fact that you're Russian or something else?
This is a color effect. We can observe literally in any vessel with reflective properties. Bending light tends to be closer to the center, just like inside our world.
Now, this is all truly fascinating and all that good stuff, but you did say that you were a concave earther. So, and I don't want to push you or anything and make you say something you don't mean, is there any possibility we're going to talk about the Earth at any point in your video?
Coming from the sun, the light falls partially on the Earth, but the bulk of these rays wraps around the whole world and returns back to the center.
So light comes from the sun, partially lands on Earth, but then the bulk of these rays wrap themselves around the whole world and return back to the center. So light rays are like boomerangs then? They just decide to wrap around the entire world and then return back to the center? Center of what exactly? I had no idea that light had a built-in homing device, or that it subscribes to the what goes around comes around philosophy quite so literally.
Let's return to our rainbows, which have never been arcs. And the whole difference between rainbows and halo effect is only that the rainbow is the result of projecting scattered and bent sunlight in the droplets of the atmosphere, and the solar halo is the result of projecting the same scattered spheres of curved light only closer to the lunar sphere from the Earth on the ice cover settled on the lunar sphere itself.
Okay, first let's address this persistent denial. Rainbows are arcs from the ground because the rest of their perfectly circular form is, well, you know, below the horizon. Unless you're in space or on an aeroplane, you're only seeing the top half. It's not a conspiracy, it's geometry. Now, the whole difference between rainbows and halos, it's so much more than just the location of your imaginary projection screen. Rainbows are born from sunlight inside liquid water droplets, undergoing specific refractions and internal reflections. Halos are the result of light refracting through ice crystals, quite often hexagonal ones, in the upper atmosphere. Different medium, different physics, different thing entirely.
And by the way, chunks of ice often fall from the sky, but this is not particularly advertised. And the sensational aviation art in the sky is quite possible, and there is a way to combat the ice that settles on the lunar sphere.
Not advertised? Right. You know, because colossal chunks of ice falling from the sky is just so mundane. It's barely even worth a fleeting mention on the evening news. Mega cryometeors, which, by the way, are incredibly rare, are usually explained by unusual atmospheric conditions or ice breaking off aircraft.
After all, in the model of the flat Earth, in the center of the imaginary sphere is the Earth itself, or rather the North Pole. And the sun is high under the dome or nailed to the dome according to different versions. Not to mention the fact that on the flat Earth is the dome and not the hemisphere.
Well, of course he's gonna bring up the flat Earth, because why not? And, just for informational purposes, if the Earth was flat and it was covered by a dome, the shape of that dome would be hemispherical, because it would be half of a sphere.
This is far from a hemisphere. A dome with a height of 117 kilometers spoke about this in detail in the video. There is also an old video circulating on the internet where, again, pay attention, the light source is inside the concave part of some large imaginary sphere. And again we see a halo of light, only it is alone, because there is only one surface passing through the light.
Oh dear me, haven't you ever told your wife that it's not the size that counts? It doesn't matter how big or small it is, half of a sphere will always be a hemisphere. So, what have we learned today from our new friend? Well, we've learnt that hollow earthers are just as wrong as flat earthers and probably just as much fun to laugh at. So what do you think? Should we look a little deeper into hollow earth theory? Pun fully intended. Let's talk about it in the comments. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you again on Friday. Take care, everybody. Love you. Bye.
Screw you guys. I'm going home.
Do you know the worst thing any of you could have done is told me that you don't like my dad jokes? So with that in mind, here's another one for you. So a bloke walks into a library and says to the librarian, "Have you got any books for men with small penises?" And she said, "Oh, I don't know if it's in yet." That's the one he said.
I don't think so. No, 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 no. I don't think so. No, 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 no. It's never, ever, 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 ever